Hey, it's Freitag. In this podcast, we interview business owners in New Hampshire and beyond to get their perspective on work, growth, and of course, the weekend. Join our host, Freitag Marketing owner Jan Ziegler, as he interviews fascinating guests. We hope you'll enjoy this episode.
Welcome to another episode of It's Freitag. I'm Jan, I'm the owner of Freitag Marketing. Today I'm joined by our very own, that sounds weird, Alana Fiero. Alana is our head of growth and partnerships and also does a bunch of other cool stuff. And I want to really spend the time talking about that. Welcome, Alana.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What I want to talk about today a little bit is, you're not just working here. You have done a bunch of other cool jobs around here. You're the president at KYPN, the Keene Young Professionals Network. And I've talked to a bunch of people lately, and, we've been talking a lot about young people in the area and how to attract more young people, whether it was with Julie Giselle or with Jay Haston. And so let's start first with, how did you end up here? You grew up in New York. Tell me about that. How did you end up in?
Yeah, so it was really serendipitous. So I grew up in upstate New York in a really small town outside of Albany. I went to college at Penn State, and they had a college career fair where CNS Wholesale Grocers was recruiting. I happened to go. I was not even in the right major for the career fair, but I was like, I need a job. So I went, and their HR person at the time was like, oh, well, you could do something in HR. And so I met some other CNS folks who were Penn State alum. The rest is history. I ended up working there for 5 years, hopping around in many different roles, but it was a really great way to get introduced to the area and also put roots down and meet a lot of great people. So that's how I landed in Keene.
That's really cool. And I think it seems like your last role at CNS was the role that because of which everybody knows you. Talk a little bit about that if you want to.
Yeah, it was definitely a really fun role. It was community relations. I still had a communications aspect because that was my background, but I got to work with a ton of local nonprofits on CNS's philanthropic mission. So whether it was natural disasters and making sure that people in Florida got water when there were hurricanes, or making sure local nonprofits that were related to childhood hunger or hunger in general were receiving food so that they could feed people in towns across the country where CNS has warehouses. It was just a really broad range of meeting people, not only in Keene, but all over the country from all of these different sectors. And it was amazing. It was a really cool learning experience.
And CNS is probably one of the biggest donors, nonprofit supporters here in the area with Saints Bank Walpole, maybe a couple of foundations, but probably one of the big three, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely fun because we had a very clear path on what the mission, vision, and values of CNS were. So it made my job easy because I could go out and say, we love this organization, we love supporting you, but then also looking at new organizations to support. There was just a lot of leeway, and I had a lot of agency to decide, what we could and couldn't do. So it was a really great opportunity to kind of have the world as my oyster and figure out how we could help the community in a lot of different ways.
You're relatively young.
I hope so.
You are, right? You're not even 30 yet. So that was a job with a lot of responsibility fairly early, right? Because in the end, if you, not that you unilaterally decide who gets the money, who doesn't, but it's still a lot of influence, right, at a young age.
Yeah, it was nice because from the get-go, I established myself as someone at CNS who really cared about the community. A lot of leadership recognized that I was really involved. And it was actually an HR leader at the time when the current community relations person stepped down who actually picked me and said, hey, I can tell you're really involved and you really care. I think you'd be a great fit. So it was just a nice example of showing yourself at work and being true to yourself and the things that you love doing and showing leadership that can really pay off because it opened up that whole opportunity for me.
And was at that time sort of when you got involved with KYPN or did that happen after?
Yeah, actually before. So I joined KYPN within a year of moving to Keene. It was one of my colleagues at CNS who actually recommended it to me just to make friends. I didn't really know anybody here. I had a cohort that I was hired in with at CNS, but essentially they were like, hey, we can tell you really like being involved. You should come to a board meeting, and the rest is history. I started doing a little bit of marketing for them, just a monthly newsletter. And then when the current president stepped down, they kind of picked me as, hey, we can tell that you really care. Why don't you take this on and see how it goes? And they supported me through that. So it's been great. I've been president for, I think, 4 years now, which is crazy. So I'm actually trying to figure out, I'm in the process of figuring out what comes next for KYPN and kind of helping folks step up into other leadership positions to support me or eventually take over so I can, be more of a mentor in that capacity.
Okay, that's really cool. So you feel like you've been there on that with most things at KYPN a little bit? And
No, the cool thing about KYPN is there's so many opportunities because we're kind of under this umbrella and it is whatever you want to make of it. A lot of young professionals organizations around the state are very heavily professional networking oriented. KYPN's always been unique because we've focused more on the social aspect because that's the need here. People just need help making friends just because, it's an aging population. There aren't as many young people in this region. So like that's how the food festival came to fruition is we were like, why don't we do something different? It was out of COVID, but we were able to really make it whatever we wanted it to be. And so I don't think it's a been there, done that. I think there's a lot of other opportunities. It's more of a let somebody else.
So before we I want to talk more about KYPN, especially like young professionals here in the area, but let's like finish your little CV first. How you then went to Fidelity, which is out of the Keene area. Was that just sort of like looking for a new challenge? What kind of made you do that? Also because, you were very involved in the community and then you took a job that kind of took you out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I was at CNS, like I said, for 5 years. It was my first job out of college, my first experience in a corporate environment like that. And it kind of got to the point where I wanted to spread my wings and fly a little bit, see what else was out there as far as communications, because I had been doing internal communications all of that time. And so what was it like to do more consulting work, more external work with other vendors and partners? And so I took the leap. I'd heard that Fidelity was a great place to work. And so I had been commuting back and forth to Merrimack every other week. And I decided very quickly that that wasn't a good fit for me. I really loved the region. My boyfriend and I had bought a house here in Swansea. So at that point, we were like, I need to find a job back in Keene. Fidelity, the people were great. It was a good opportunity to learn something new, but it was not what I wanted to do with the rest of my career.
Okay. So then after you kind of like, you got to that point, like you came to us. Which I think is really a funny story. I love telling it is, we didn't have a job opening. But I remember you just sent me an email. You're like, hey, I want to grab coffee. I think, Freitag might be a cool place to work. Why? Like why? And like, talk to me a little bit about that. And sort of also how it's been. I don't want to spend because you're here and all, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Freitag because it's not a promo podcast, but what made that happen for you?
Yeah, so a couple things. One was now that I had done the internal communications and I had done kind of more of the external consulting, I was like, okay, I have an older sister who works in marketing. And I was really trying to think of other career pathways that I could still apply communications to, but wasn't necessarily directly doing copy or content creation day after day. And so that's when I looked into just businesses in the area, things that I could throw my hat in the ring and see what might work. And so that's when I reached out to you and I said, I don't know if I have marketing expertise. I don't know if this is a good fit, but let's try it. And you gave me the opportunity. And so far it's going really well.
Cool. And you've been here now for 5 months, I think?
4-ish, 5.
Yeah. Feels like a long time.
Yeah.
Cool. And what's Freitag like? Like, what is that? I feel like from the outside, a lot of people think about marketing agencies the way I think about them as very stressful and busy. But what is it like working at Freitag so far?
Yeah, I think my favorite part, hands down, is like the people I work with. In any other corporate environment I've worked in, it's like I don't always get a good handle on who people are, what they do. A lot of it was remote, but in a very impersonal way. Like I didn't really get to know much about people's families or their pets or anything like that. And despite the fact that we're in a mostly remote environment, it's so fun to interact with the coworkers here. Like the culture is so like youthful and I don't know, people make jokes. It's like not a scary place to just be yourself. And I think that's sometimes where the corporate like comes out where I'm like too professional. Jan yells at me because I come up dressed, I dress up every day and I come to work and it's just nice to feel like I have that breathing room that I didn't have previously.
Okay, cool. So that's Freitag. It's great to have you. What I really want to sort of dig deep on is a lot of young people leave because they don't feel like there's something to do. A lot of young people come here and then they feel like it's hard. I think the most successful people that come here are the ones that like are starting a family. They tend to stick. I think that works really well. But in their 20s, like pre-family, I think it's a lot harder to find things. And like, what are you guys doing at like sort of KYPN, or how do you look at the whole issue?
Yeah, so a few things there. And it's a super complex issue. And people often come to KYPN as sort of the subject matter expert because we have so many people that I just hear anecdotal stories from. So Keene is a great place, especially for young people who have entry-level jobs. They come here, it could be out of college, it could be out of a trade school, it could be out of high school, and they're able to find something here for them in their early 20s that gets them through potentially to 30. What I often find in here is that there's not a lot of advancement after that. So when people are looking for that next move, there aren't as many roles available for young people in middle management. and certainly not as many that compare to what you could get salary-wise in a big city. The people who stay are the people who love the nature and the outdoorsy element of this town. But we lean a lot on that, and there are a handful of people who come here who would otherwise live in New York City or Boston and don't really like nature, and we have to sell this area to those people as well, because that's also the talent that we need to attract here.
I feel like, from my perspective, I agree that I think we lean a little too much on the nature, because I think as soon as you say New England to people, to like, people across the country, the nature part is sold. Like, it's like either you like that vibe, you like that kind of nature, or you don't. Like, because it's not, yeah, we have beaches, but it's not Florida, and it's not always hot. And yes, we have winter, and mud season sucks. But I feel like people know that. It's not that much of a selling point. I feel like it's more of a selling, like nature is more of a selling point from people that or from areas where you don't expect it. Like North Carolina, it's like, oh, we have actually amazing outdoors. Not on my list for North Carolina, but I think for New England, it's almost like a given. And I feel like, I also feel like that it is the selling point that we're not selling enough is you can have serious careers here. I feel like everybody knows there's jobs, but I don't think people know there are careers here.
Yeah. And that's something that even I struggled with a bit when I was trying to decide to move my career back here from Merrimack and trying to find a place that I could stick around and really develop my professional career. So one of the things that we try to do at KYPN is help people understand the culture that exists around here. I think a lot of young people generally have the stigma of everything closes at 8 p.m. There's nothing to do on a weeknight or a weekend. It's so slow. And really, we've made an effort to curate a lot of the cultural things that are happening and posting them to our Instagram and Facebook to say, hey, this concert's happening. We'll throw a pair of free tickets to people who comment. Just trying to encourage people to do a little bit of exploring, because unfortunately, you do have to dig a bit. I tell people it's there, but you have to dig. You have to know the right people. It's not always obvious unless you're looking at a bulletin board at the co-op, what's going on.
And isn't that true also for careers? Because I feel like the really cool jobs here probably don't get posted. They get filled with, I don't know if the Freitag job is a really cool job, but it was never posted. And I think, when I moved here and I didn't know anybody and, sort of career-wise, I was looking for a new job before I started Freitag. I was like, there's no serious marketing jobs here. There's, you can, entry-level stuff, or you're your marketing coordinator for this and that company, which I didn't, coming from my background, didn't find challenging enough. And then I also think it's really hard to find that growth, because most companies, there's exceptions, but most companies here have marketing offices of one. And I think growing beyond that in marketing, but I think in other areas too, is really hard, which is why ultimately I started an agency. But I think I can totally see how a lot of people who aren't maybe as proactive as you were have just look at what's open and they're like, it's nothing for me here.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. This region is so relationship based, and it makes sense. It's a small town, but not everybody is going to have that personality where they want to go to every networking event or show up at every single thing. And yet they could still be a really talented engineer or teacher or whatever that looks like. And so really understanding where can we show people that these opportunities exist, I think is definitely important.
Yeah. Do you think there's a disconnect between where people advertise their jobs and where young people maybe get, where they hang out? I feel like everybody here relies so heavily on, using staffing agencies and posting on LinkedIn and on Indeed. And you get active job searchers, but I don't think that way you get in front of people that maybe are passively looking or low-key looking. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be interesting to do sort of a networking or career fair from the young professionals perspective. I know most people, at least that I'm familiar with, whenever they're looking for a job in this area, they'll just do Greater Boston. And if they have to commute to Mass or the Seacoast, it is what it is. And so, yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like a lot of the things I often see on an Indeed or a LinkedIn are entry level, hourly work potentially. And so folks are just writing those platforms off as, this is not where I'm going to find my career.
Yeah, because in the end, your second, third, and fourth job, in your career ladder, they don't come up that often, right? Because that seniority isn't really required. So do you think that's gonna, because a lot of people are gonna retire, do you think there's actually a lot of opportunity for young people here, or do you think it's gonna get worse because, businesses are maybe aging out, closing down, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a mix of both. I would say young people definitely need to advocate for themselves if they plan to stay in the area. I think I often hear people being like, well, I'm going to stay here until I can find something better. And so if they have that attitude going into work every day, I don't know that people are necessarily pegging them as the next leader of their organization. I do think because it's so heavily word of mouth, whenever somebody does move here from out of the area, and by the way, most of the people who come to KYPN are from out of state. It's very rare that we have people, I shouldn't say it's totally an anomaly, but people who are already from the area who are exploring our organization. And so they really need to prove themselves if they want to stay here, that they're going to stay here. So people actually invest the time. And I think that's where things like leadership and NANOC really come in handy. Like there's ways that employers can show their employees like, hey, we care, we want to invest in you. There's a next step here. But I'm not as concerned about the people retiring and aging out. It's like making sure that middle management can move up to make room for the people who are still trying to get that next step in their job.
Okay. So what's the age range of people that go to like KYPN?
Yeah, so youngest we say 21 just because sometimes we're at bars, but 39. Like young at heart is generally what we say. If people can show up and be social and not weird, like honestly, that's like our only credentials.
Hey, just be normal.
Yeah, just be normal. We welcome everyone. Like we've had people show up who are just curious. We've had people who are employers or local, you know, they're with the Keene government just to say like, hey, we're here. If you have any questions on what's going on in the town, let me know. Like we really welcome those folks because those aren't people that our membership will be interacting with on a regular basis.
And so, like, the other thing I want to talk about is a little bit of like, because, you know, I'm on a Monadnock United Way board, as you know, and I mean, boards in general tend to be old, like, which is fine because, you know, people bring a lot of expertise. They've done things for a long time. And I don't think you want like a treasurer who's been a banker for 2 years, like probably somebody with more experience. But do you think there's a way of making like board service and like nonprofit engagement like more hip, cooler, interesting to younger people? Because I don't think it's necessarily on their radar. I mean, of course, there's exceptions like you, but like the general public, probably not so involved.
Yeah, I think board membership in general is like this. We need to demystify what it is because people come in and they're like, how much time do I have to commit? And I think that's the biggest thing. Even with YPN, we have a monthly board meeting, and that can be hard for some of our members to commit to because they have lives, they're teaching classes, they're taking classes. They have other social engagements. And so we need to create a structure that's flexible enough for young people to join, whether that means you're having virtual meetings or we invite them to a committee first to get their feet wet. What I really love about board membership is any board that I've been on so far, it's enough people and it's a span of enough expertise that even as a young person coming in, you're not just thrown in the deep end and suddenly given a ton of responsibility. It's a really cool way to get an understanding of an organization that you might not have any idea how it operates, and you're getting this essentially free, I mean, you're volunteering your time, but you're essentially getting this free professional development and network that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
Okay. And couldn't that also fill the gaps that you have in terms of like, and obviously, you know, it doesn't fill the gaps of like promotions and salary increases that you get in advancing your career, but it's actually a great way to do something else outside of work that is fulfilling, rewarding, gets you responsibility and your feet wet in some really big decisions, because it turns out that like boards are actually on the hook for a lot of stuff. Yeah,
I would almost like disagree in the sense that my board membership directly helped me get this job at Freitag. It's people I knew through the boards that I was on that were on my recommendation list to talk to you. So those are the types of people outside of your current employer or friends. Like, I don't know if anybody ever wants to put a family member on their list of people for their employer to call as a recommendation. Like, those are great opportunities to get some really solid recommendations.
No, you're right. Especially because you suddenly, as a very young person, you get visibility with usually on the boards. Most people here are, you know, old senior, like they're senior in position, not senior in age, but like they're in senior positions in their organizations. They're very involved. They know a lot of people because those are the kind of people that go on boards. So I think that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I think, I don't know, out of your 3 references, 2 of them you serve on boards together with, which makes for great, because then people know them. Like, it makes for great references.
Yeah, it opens a lot of doors in the community too. People latch on. That's the benefit of this area, is if you are young and you're willing to show up and do stuff, people will latch onto you so tight. They'll open doors for you. They'll recommend people for you to meet. It's like, it doesn't make sense not to do it. In other words, like, there are so many places that you can voice your opinion, make a difference, just because you're in a demographic that is not represented well here and people are desperate to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think this is very fertile ground for young people that want to do stuff, because I think there is very little competition in that space, and I think a million people that want to help you in whatever way. Like, I think it is like that's what I mean. That's why Freitag is where we are now, is because there's a lot of people that want to help us. They're not gaining anything. They're like, oh, this is a young, cool idea. Let me help. So let's talk about Taste of Keene, because I honestly didn't make the connection. I was like, why is KYPN doing a food festival? Like, that seems like the local restaurant association that doesn't exist should host that. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was our former president, Mike Giacomo, and we were in the midst of pandemic, like 2020. Our whole organization is fueled off of in-person events. And so obviously people were feeling really cooped up inside, and we were like, what can we do? We still met virtually. We still had all this free time on our hands, and we're like, what could we do to help the community in some way? Because we do some service activities. There's also Rotaract, which is another organization for young people who are interested specifically in service. So we try not to step on their toes, but we do know that service is a nice way for people to get involved. So with that, we did this whole like grocery delivery service for a short period of time to people who were potentially vulnerable to COVID, where we like took orders like before Grubhub or DoorDash was like a thing in Keene, if it even is a thing, where we like delivered orders of groceries to people. We were like, what can we do? So he had this grand idea to start a food festival because it was outdoors. It was a way to get people involved. It would be a cool way to kick off the summer. And the restaurants were really hurting because they weren't getting any foot traffic. So we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, we rallied. It was awesome in that a couple of our board members served on Keene City Council. So we had an in as far as what policies, what compliance things we had to do. And that was a huge help. But also just kind of was an awesome opportunity to rally around something and really believe in something when it was kind of a depressing time. And so, we started small. We just reached out to the business owners that we knew, the people on Main Street. I mean, when we first started, it was just essentially Central Square and maybe a little bit of Roxbury Street, but it's crazy how much it's grown. And now it's really a flagship event in the community, which is a source of pride for us.
That's really cool. And so is it a committee within like KYPN that basically puts the entire thing together?
Sort of, yeah. We're sort of restructuring that now because it's become such a big event that we do need a separate committee just to handle it. For now, it's honestly just been all of our board members rallying. I would say myself and 2 other people taking the majority of it on. But yes, I think this is the first year coming that we will actually have a specific committee just dedicated to Taste of Keene.
And just for like scale, people show up there? I mean, on a non-rainy?
On a non-rainy, let's not talk about it. Probably between 4,000 and 5,000. We're not on the scale of Pumpkin Fest yet, but we're on their heels. Like we really want to become a huge event where downtown is just packed wall to wall with people.
So, I mean, that is second only. I mean, the Ice Festival isn't that big. Or
yeah, it's a couple days, so it kind of spreads. But yeah, as far as getting people from out of town into town and just the consolidated hours, it's like 11:30 to 3:30. Absolutely. It's a big event.
That's incredible. That's so cool. So what is next for you? I mean, it sounds like, KYPN, you might take like a little step back in the future. What are you going to do with all that time?
Yeah, so a lot of things are going through my head because I've just been so involved that part of it's just like, okay, let's take a step back and evaluate like what really comes next. I also serve on the board for Hannah Grimes, so I still fully have responsibilities there that I'm interested in, taking on more if possible. But just, I'm a new homeowner. I just adopted a pet, like just enjoying life and taking some time to relax and maybe
Do you actually know how to do that?
Think about what I want to do next. No, I get so much slack for that. No, I don't know how to relax, but I'd love to like just focus on me and what the next steps are and what makes sense. Because I would love to join, another board in the future, whatever makes sense. I just want to think about what that would look like.
Oh, don't say that out loud.
Don't say that out loud.
Like it's like cool. Well, let's switch gears a little bit like we do. And let's talk about sort of what that plethora of free time that you have looks like. You just mentioned your new pet.
Yeah.
That's not named Asado.
No. I think Evie, we're thinking, I don't know, that's the name I told the vet, but we adopted a little kitty from the Humane Society, which was an awesome experience. I'd never really done anything with the Humane Society before, and it was such a seamless experience, and everybody was so kind. So that was awesome. I have a garden at home. It's not doing very well, so don't talk to me about that. But I love flowers. We tore up our whole backyard this past summer because it's our first summer in this house and really having fun with it, meeting our neighbors, doing like the small town Swansea things. They have a little weekly concert every Friday that we go to and kind of see all of our neighbors. So it's fun. It's been fun to engage with a community that, you're no longer renting. You're like in it. So.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you do on weekends?
Yeah. So kayaking, hiking, motorcycling, camping, bicycle riding. I mean, anything that's outside that's not like
I mean, you're literally gone every weekend.
super
like,
intense.
Since
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah. Nothing intense. Like, I'm not going to be the person doing a 4,000 footer with anybody. Sorry. Mount Monadnock is like my threshold of what I can hike. But I just love trying new things like zip lining, skydiving. Like, take me. I want to go at least once and try everything once.
Okay.
And that's why, again, I love this area because there's so much of that to do around here.
There is. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on here. I don't think we talked too much about Freitag, which I really wanted to avoid. But I think it's really cool, all the things that sort of you bring to the area in that perspective of young people, which there's not that many of, that really care that out. Where can people reach you if they want to know more about KYPN and maybe join the board and become president?
That would be cool. KeeneYPN@gmail.com, or just any of our socials. You can just send a private message and that goes to me or our marketing person. So you can reach us there.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, that was a great conversation. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave us a nice review wherever you're listening to this. It really means the world. Our episodes drop every Friday, so stay tuned for more insightful chats from It's Freitag.